Hello. So if the staff can go into the highways and the byways and grab the chiefs, that'd be great. We're doing not too bad. We're only an hour behind. So staff, if you can go into the hallways and encourage the chiefs to come back in. We'd like to get started. Okay, so if we can get the chiefs and proxies to come back to the table, we'd like to get started. We'd like to get started for this 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock item. 14 of them inside. Some are still sitting in the back. Okay, so we're going to get started. Any chiefs that are sitting in the observer section, if you could come back to the table. It's such an important part of our meeting today, this presentation. So with that, I'd like to call upon Deputy Grand Chief Anna Betty Achapanishkam.
Thank you. Good afternoon, chiefs and proxies and youth and elders and women's council. And I'd like to, as you may have noticed, we have representatives from Anishinaabe Police Services that have joined us. Thank you for joining us today. And we also have Board Chair Mike Matata-Wabin, who has also joined us. So part of what we are going to be doing here prior to our NAPS border control presentation is that we want to honor and pay tribute and acknowledge the Chief of Police, Roland Morrison. And so in the past few weeks, we have been going through some protocols in order for us to reach this point, because there are certain protocols that need to be respected and followed through when we are presenting this type of acknowledgement to a person who has served the citizens of Anishinaabe Nation as a police officer. Roland has served 25 years now. And, you know, we're very grateful and honored that he has agreed to serve as a chief of police. And we must all, you know, be applaud him and commend for his commitment. So there is a gift that we want to present to him, and then that will be presented by myself and the NAN executive that is here, I guess, in the Grand Chief, and also any of the board representatives that are here. And then afterwards, we ask that you join us and with an honor song that we are going to be presenting and being in terms of celebrating Chief Morrison. So I have to take off this mic so I can go and stand there in the middle. So hopefully I don't break it. Okay. So Grand Chief, if you can join us, and then Mike can roll in. So, so Tushan, if you can just share a little bit about.
Bojo Wache, I was asked by Deputy Grand Chief and Grand Chief to create something for our Chief of Police here. And one of the things that they asked me to do was create this item. And one of the things that I was taught was that when we're making these things, it's special. And the teaching with that is that it's you don't make these just to make them. They're made special. And that was one of the things that the elder shared with me when he showed me how to make these. And so that's the items that I made. They're unique, and I was it was kind of challenging to dress it, and one of the things that I was suggested was to put moose hide on it, and so I did that, and it's actually from your territory. Me and my father-in-law, we harvest that and we smoke tan that throughout the whole year, and so that's a piece of your where you come from it's there too. So.
So this is, so if you want to read that.
Read that one? So this item is presented to Chief Roland Morrison, Anishinaabe Police Service. In recognition of your 25 years of dedicated service, loyalty, and strong commitment to the people of Anishinaabe Nation, we present you with this bear claw necklace at the 40th Keewaywin Conference in Matagami First Nation on this day of August 10th, 2022.
So the bear claw necklace that you see before you, as Tushan indicated, it was made by him. The smoked tan moose hide was harvested and prepared in the traditionally in the Moose Cree territory by Tushan Fiddler and his father-in-law Earl Chichu. The 25 claws represent the years of service. The 4 gold cachos represent the 4 directions. The bear claw necklace is given to warriors who have shown bravery in their life and dedication to serving their people. So you can lift it up for him. You can lift it up for him. Yeah. So now we will have an honor song, and the board representatives and the other officers can also come and join Roland. Deputy Linklater.
What's it? On behalf of the board, Nishnabia Police Services Board of Directors, I would like to ask Tushan to accept our appreciation for your work. Chief Roland, if I can ask you to just hang in there for a second. On behalf of the board, our appreciation for the gift, the work you do in making the event possible. Simigas, watch you. I'm still hanging on to it. Good. Good. Before I hand the microphone over to Chief Roland, just in the language, I'll explain briefly what transpired. Chikiskin dame kino kigo kai steak kabit ndochtame kabit kano bakik. Iskinot haganon hego lugamanan winagani gana bistak homa okubohesiot to skewin Roland Morrison. Iskinot kiskin minaganon kiskinot Así awasate nishta nian popon pumatatar tabatason nesta maganos twina enigana pista homa atoskeon naswich kagestabat stai. You guys must get it to kigo. On that note, I will pass the microphone over to Chief Roland for last comments. Migas.
Well, first of all, I don't know what to say. This is a complete shock. I hope this doesn't mean that I'm kind of being moved to the door. But I still have a few years left on my contract. So, first of all, I'm truly honored. This is such a beautiful gift. You know, when you I looked at a person in the back, standing right over there, wearing the Montreal cap. Yep. Don't hold that against him. But I'm going to let you know that Eric Chichu is probably the reason why I'm standing up here. I started off as a guard at Moose Factory, and Eric was the sergeant there. And I got an opportunity to see how to give back to the community. And I saw the good work that the officers were doing in Moose Factory. And I said, you know, I was kind of lost, didn't know what to do after playing hockey and doing some college. But I saw what they were doing. I saw Eric and I saw Harold, people from Moose Factory giving back to their community. And I wanted to give back as well. So it's been a great career. It is a great career. I love our NAN territory. I love the people in our territory. That's why I'm committed to our territory, to improve it, to make it a better place for our people, to stop the harm that's plaguing our people, and that's what I'm committed to. But I can't do it alone. I look at all the officers that are out there who are working today, and many of them are working alone. And it's important that we acknowledge that. You know, policing is a rewarding career, but it's also a very, very challenging and tough career. It comes with a lot of hardship, a lot of sacrifice. But I will let you know that the officers working for Anishinaabe Police are committed to our territory, to making sure our communities are safe, and we can't forget them. We can't forget what they do, because they do it day in, day out. And the things that they have to put up with just in their day-to-day activities, you know, they're not thanked very often for that. And it's important that we can't forget what they do out in the front line. You know, I see Abelina, I know her brother Jason's been on the job for a number of years working in Fort Albany. You know, there's a number of people, you know, I look at Dwight here, former officer, Chief Nakaji over at Attawapiskat. You know, David, we've worked, you know, a number of years together, and it is a challenging career, but it's very rewarding. So for those who are in our NAN territory, the youth in our territory, please get involved. Please help our communities. We need your help. We need everyone's help. But I just want to say I am very honored, very surprised for this. Thank you very much, Grand Chief, Deputy Grand Chief, Board Chair, you know, chiefs around this community, chiefs around this table. We've had meetings with you. We talk about contentious issues, but they're very necessary, because in the end, it's all about making sure our communities are safe. So thank you very much for this completely wonderful honor. And I am not going to stop doing what I do. I will be advocating on behalf of NAPS to our governments, to the other police services that we work with when it comes to our service, you know, making sure that, you know, that we're doing what we're supposed to do out in the front line, making sure our communities are safe. So I got to thank a lot of people to thank. My Deputy Chief, Daryl Snyder, the busiest guy in our police service, making sure that things are running smoothly. Inspector Jeannie Burke, Northeast Region Inspector, Inspector Larry Ross, Northwest Region, Inspector Alex Miswace in the Central Region. You know, there's a number of people to thank. You know, certainly the executive staff at our office. You know, my families, you know, my parents, my brother Chris. I'm gonna have to talk with him too. Sean told me, I guess my brother Chris knew I was getting this before I was, so I'm gonna be FaceTiming my brother tonight. So definitely, you know, last but not least, my family, you know, my wife, and yeah, it's just truly honored to receive this and work for the people. You know, I enjoy my job. I love my job. I love what I do, and I'm not going to stop doing it. So thank you very much. It's a complete honor, and again, thank you.
Truly deserving. I'm proud to say that we might be the first or second claw on that necklace. Roland did time in Mishkigogmang as an officer, and I always tell him that we trained him well. We kept him busy. And I'll tell you a quick little funny story, just to break it, because it was, no, it's a tearjerker. I know that while he was there was an upsurge of women trying to get arrested. But he stayed loyal to his wife. That's a warrior. Okay, so with that, we'll get into, before I get him into more trouble, I'll get right into the next topic. So I'd like to call upon the chair of the NAPS, Board Chair Mike Matatawaban, and Julian Faulkner on the NAPS border control issue. I've been told that there is a resolution that is going to be with this issue. However, it's not ready till tomorrow. Yeah, Deborah? Yeah. Okay, so We'll do the presentation, and then we'll do the resolution. As we do try to do the resolutions as each topic is being discussed while it's fresh, but this one will be for tomorrow. Okay, with that, Board Chair? I have no idea how you put that back.
Okay. Amigos, Pache, good afternoon. Thank you. Greetings to everybody, chiefs, women, youth, elders, and our families back home, friends, amigos. What we will be presenting this afternoon is a resolution, and we hope that you will take it into consideration, and we hope that you will provide us your support for it. The resolution is addressing the drug enforcement and border control in communities. This is the presentation that we will be making. If you could just scroll up. On behalf of the board and police service, the NAPS board and chief of police have been listening closely to the requests from chiefs and communities for support for drug enforcement measures. We continue to meet and discuss with you the best ways we can to support enforcement of your Indigenous laws and address the flow of illegal drugs across the First Nation borders. In this presentation, we provide a short update on our latest work, including enforcement of Indigenous laws, NAPS border control strategy. Today, we are also asking for your support for a resolution supporting the NAPS border control strategy. Next page. We recognize that communities have already adopted Indigenous laws through BCRs and bylaws banning illegal drugs. Sections of the criminal code also apply to prohibit possession and trafficking of illegal drugs. Our board and chief of police have been meeting with communities and tribal councils to better understand, number one, how to support enforcement of your laws, and number two, ensuring that NAPS is authorized to enforce those laws. In particular, the NAPS board and service can work with you to make sure that your laws explicitly gives NAPS the power to enforce those laws, including by updating the text of existing laws as needed. We look forward to meeting with you to discuss your community's priorities. Frank?
Okay, thank you, Mike. In the meantime, NAPS is taking active steps to improve its drug enforcement abilities. Prior to the most recent round of funding negotiations, NAPS had only 2 designated officers for drug enforcement for the entirety of a NAPS policing area. And they've been really busy in handling the drugs, and they've been really been successful for the number of, there's only 2 of them that are working on drugs drugs enforcement for NAN territory. And as you have seen, those news releases that periodically come out that announcing that they have done drug busts in our territory. I think they had done a commendable job with only 2 police officers, and they're supported by other drug officer, other partners that they have instituted with them in the southern part of our nation, like the Thunder Bay Police, the OPP, and so forth. And they have done I think an amazing job with only two designated drug officers along with our crime unit. However, as a strong advocacy by the chiefs, NAPS recently was approved for the funding of a brand new drug enforcement unit consisting of 18 additional officers. We had requested 27, but we were only funded for 18 officers to be added. Additional officers are expected to become available to communities. Officers whose main duty is specifically dedicated to tackling the drug crisis. Working together, NAN and NAPS have developed a proposal for the NAPS border control program. The idea with NAPS border control is to hire a team of NAPS officers dedicated to border control. While respecting local community enforcement efforts, NAPS officers will be authorized to conduct random searches of individuals entering into a community. Each community that participated would provide public notice of this new research program and adopt a VCR authorizing NAPS to conduct the searches. This proposal was recently presented to Canada, Ontario, who rejected it. However, we believe the proposal is strong. To that end, after this presentation, we'll be asking for your support on a vote on resolution ending NAPS border control strategy. Yeah, the NBC proposal to rely upon officers who are legally authorized to implement border control programs in line with local First Nation laws, Canadian criminal law, and the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. This is included in our tripartite agreement that has been signed, that our officers are required to enforce Canadian legal legislation and laws, and also provincial laws and First Nations laws. In our discussion with chiefs, two priority categories of entry points have been identified. Airport border control. Officers will conduct random searches in respect of flights scheduled to arrive in remote communities. Winter road access. Officers will be available to conduct random searches at checkpoints on winter roads and to search vehicles. Next. Let's turn back to our legal counsel.
Thank you, Vice Chair McKay. Very briefly, I was asked to speak to the legal issues around what we call NBC. And in respect of this notion of NAPS border control, the first thing I would respectfully ask you to consider, chiefs, is if you ever get on a plane in any major municipal airport of any kind, you go to Toronto City Centre, get on a plane to go to Thunder Bay. There is a machine. There is people, and I'm telling you, they're not that highly trained, that can search you. But your communities are left completely unprotected while folks get literally, have at her in terms of access to your communities with drugs. And the funders for NAPS are not listening. They are not open to this. Why? Because it's different, right? As soon as you raise something innovative and new, to be honest, the lawyers shut down, because the lawyers for government are about risk compliance and making sure they don't take risk. So they've been extremely resistant to the idea of NBC, NAPS border control, not the television network. Just telling you, it's not the Gulf station or anything, it's NBC. But the important piece to this is, why is it okay for municipalities to protect travel, but not your communities? And why should your community members take on this risk that they're not trained for to search people when a special constable or other officer could easily bear this as part of their duties? And so, when the suggestion was made, oh, well, this would be a charter problem, we provided a legal opinion that says it's not. There's a case out of Sachigo Lake. I want to honor Sachigo Lake, right? Vice Chair McKay and proxy and chief for Sachigo. I want to all acknowledge that the case of Winter, the 2008 decision by Justice McCartney. In that case, Winter road controls were in place and cocaine was seized. I understand the investigating officer on it was one unknown, obscure police officer named Roland Morrison. And in that case, they seized cocaine at the entry point on the ice roads. And the judge held that that was a lawful seizure. The entire basis that he held it was because the community had advertised that searches would be conducted at entry points. They issued a bylaw and they advertised publicly that they are going to monitor their border points. And so part of the exercise of NBC is communities, naps will only be on solid ground here if you are prepared to pass BCRs and to publicly advertise the existence of the searches. And that way, what's called the privacy expectation of the person coming into your communities is reduced. You do not have the same privacy level when you decide to go to a community that has a big sign that says, we're going to search you. There's a reason people can be legally searched when they walk through the airport at City Center, because they know going in ahead of time that that's the drill. And why should your community members who are not trained for this take this responsibility on and this risk? And so NAPS is trying to communicate to you, and it's very important you know, Chief Morrison put together with his team a business proposal for NBC. We provided a legal opinion in respect of NBC. And so you can see the judge's words. It would seem from a purely objective point of view, this is the judge talking, that anyone entering the community, because of the difficulty the community was having with intoxicants and their battle to combat same, would have a considerably lessened expectation of privacy than one might find in some other communities in the country. So the judge is trying to work with communities all the way back to 2008. So I'll turn it back over to, I think it's you, Frank. I'll keep taking time while Frank runs up here. So the bottom line to this is, politically speaking, there's a challenge. They're not listening.
Okay, the drug and mental health crisis in First Nation communities has been well documented, with remote First Nation communities being particularly hard hit. Working with partners and community leadership, NAPS continues to proactively address the underlying causes of the drug and mental health crisis, while also engaging in drug enforcement activities. For example, Project Razor, resulting in successful arrests and CDSA criminal code charges. From the practical perspective, the NBC proposal is an efficient, reliable, and cost-effective approach to address the flow of illegal substances at key border entry points. To that end, today we are asking for you to vote in favor of a resolution of support for NAPS border control. Once adopted, we can return to Canada and Ontario and continue negotiations around NBC. So I'm going to turn it over to our chairman, Mike, to have concluding remarks. Thanks.
You guys, Frank? Okay, just some final comments. Just keep in mind, this is work in progress. With your support, we would be able to continue to bring this forward to both levels of government, to seek their understanding and their support, to provide the resources that would be necessary to do this kind of work. So with that, Minguest, Mr. Gino, Mutagay and Dr. Mek. Ano man po peskis na aspect kaya ako hewe magakanama dokonon kaya patstano hanost eko ano peskis resti spanugoma at tos kam kiabes keno hewe do chate kon chigi ka ko wichstano akitestano na chigi wichaho ka gitu temenok nestamaga chigi kano na mako kitchasam senok eko ano peskis resti do chate. So it is with the intention of protecting our children, protecting our grandchildren, That is why we continue to do our best efforts to move this agenda forward. Dominguez, Roger.
So the resolution will be going to the floor tomorrow, and there will be people here to answer questions, right? Okay. Okay, and then there's some closing comments from Deputy Grand Chief.
So thank you, Chair Matadawabin and Vice Chair McKay and our legal counsel. And I also want to commend and acknowledge all the officers and of our civilian staff as well at Anishinaabe Police Services. In the past few days, we've been talking about the impacts of addictions on our people. And, you know, this is just one of the ways that we can address this issue, because we all need to be part of the war on drugs. And, you know, the board have, and the staff have put a lot of time and effort into this. And it was in response to the many comments put forward by the leadership and the people of Anishinaabe Nation. And this is one of the ways that we want to be able to contribute, because, you know, many of us, when we go somewhere, we are expected that that there's a process of search, or that we cannot carry certain substance or certain things. We all know that. But yet, why is it that when we go into our First Nations that we don't have to, that we don't have those particular prevention measures in place? So tomorrow, when we present the resolution, you know, we strongly urge that you support us to move forward with this as our means of addressing the war on drugs. Dominguez. Are you trying to?
Tough. She's tough. Okay, so that concludes this portion of the agenda. I'm going to see if there's anyone that would like to ask questions on the presentation. And I'll give that time because it is so important. Floor recognizes.
Hi, proxy for Moose Cree, Warren Hardesty. That's a general comment and a couple of questions. So I think this first comment will be, I think, should be taken some consideration for your resolution tomorrow. And a big issue that happens in our communities is, the reporting of criminal activity. A lot of our members, I find, don't know how to do that effectively. So I want to give some consideration to, perhaps a public education campaign as to how to properly report criminal activity in their communities. I'm sure many of you around the table have gotten calls from your community members, giving a description of something, and then you have to make a statement, with secondhand information, which is not good. So I just wanted to give that recommendation. I had a question about constitutionality of random searches. One portion was answered, that these random searches would be done at border entrances, such as, airports and things of that nature. However, my question is, will there be other random searches within the community other than these areas? That's my first question. Second question is this limited only to the reserves? Because in Moose Factory, it's half reserve, half non-reserve. and some of the territory, some of us have roads, some don't. So how is that going to work out? Like, is it that jurisdiction? Is it just the reserve, or is it the outlying area as well? And my final question is, why did Canada and Ontario reject this? What was their rationale? Thank you.
So legal questions, I'll give it to Julian. So the first one is, could there be other searches other than airports? And the second one, is it limited to the reserve only? And the Canada question.
So thank you for the question, and I apologize, we haven't met before, so I apologize for not addressing you by name. You asked 3 questions, and I'll answer them backwards because I do everything backwards. So Canada and Ontario were not prepared to agree to this, claiming its unconstitutionality. And so we have a legal disagreement. But what I will tell you is what I mentioned before. The government, the colonial government, whether you're talking federal or provincial, naturally attracts risk-compliant lawyers who the last thing their job is to do is to think outside of the box. And they never disappoint. They never think outside of the box. Every time we come up with an idea, the volunteer jury system that created Indigenous representation on juries for inquests, they opposed it until they were forced by the political leaders to agree to it. Every innovative idea that is presented to them gets shot down. So I'm completely used to this, and it's an exercise where your political pressure will make it happen. They would rather you take the risk than them. I assure you that it's not only my legal opinion or some ego trip by me personally as a lawyer. I have sought other opinions from other professionals, independent of our law firm, who have also, in writing, recognized the validity of the activity. Now, I'm going to go backwards in terms of answering your questions. You asked about access to non-reserve communities or non-fly-in communities. And you also raised the question of access when we're not talking about a traditional, easy access point fly-ins. And I would say this is my respectful recommendation, and I'm just the lawyer, right? My respectful recommendation is to do this in steps. You have some, what I would respectfully call low-hanging fruit in terms of crisis, where the fly-in points, they're coming in and there seems to be very little ways to stop them on really obvious points. And so respectfully, I would suggest start with those points that are easy egress and exit points, right? Because let's face it, a fly-in community, how do you get in, right? And same with the Winter Road. I'm not in any way suggesting that down the road there shouldn't be expansion. I'm saying start in a way that is sort of achievable. And I do respect the fact that there are other search issues, and so let me end with your first question. And your first question, respectfully, was, in the circumstances, are there other places searches can be done? Chief Morrison has expressly offered to Cat Lake, who has accepted, and it's now become work being done with Wendigo, an opportunity to work authorities for NAPs into current Indigenous laws, whether those laws are through bylaws or otherwise. We're working with communities to create wording that gives NAPs an increased and very express legal authority to work with you. But without that authority in writing, right, passed through your Indigenous law, I don't like using the word bylaws. I don't know why everybody's so hung up on the word bylaws. It comes from the Indian Act. Respectfully, it's not my place. I'm the outsider, the Jamaican Polish lawyer, but I'm an outsider. But I would say respectfully, it's your Indigenous law. It's not bylaws. It's your Indigenous law, whatever your Indigenous law is to be that you decide it's to be. But we, NAPs, will work with you in respect of that Indigenous law, but we need to create authorities within that law that are very express, where you delegate a power to NAPs to do certain things, because without that express authority, NAPS can't do it. It's going to get thrown out of court. That's the fear. Does that make sense? Cool. Thank you.
The floor is still open for questions on the presentation. Chief Munoz.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Chief Munoz, Niskandiga First Nation. I don't know how to start. While I appreciate the presentation, Julian is looking at me. While I appreciate the presentation and the strides that are being made, we're still not doing enough at the community level right now, today. That's what's creating unrest and really difficult challenges for even the leadership, even our bylaw officer, searchers that are doing the searchers at our airports and at our community. It's a long time coming. We've had discussions with NAPS on so many occasions. Help us. What can we do? There has to be an urgency. I'm sorry to say this all the time. There is an urgency to do these things. It's an urgent requirement when you're dealing with drug overdoses, when you're dealing with high-end drugs that are coming into the communities that are exposed to the most vulnerable, our youth, our single mothers. That's what's happening in our communities. And it's no different in Niskandiga. So what I'm asking is, what are we doing right now to help our communities? Why is our officers still hesitant to help our bylaw officers that are searching at the airport? All those things, we encounter those things. And I like the approach of maybe having a resolution or moving forward on a longer term type strategy. But right now, today, it's basically First Nations communities like Niskandiga are on their own. I shared on the first day of this assembly, why we need to act quickly, why we need to start addressing the homeless issues, how we can do that, how we can also act on the addictions that our people are facing, the high-end drugs that are getting into our communities. We need the officers that are based in our communities to be able to support our communities, to be able to support our people that are searching at the airports. And there's always hesitation. You guys know that. There's always hesitation. I cannot do that, or I can't do this. Even though there's strong suspicion or grounds for support or to look into it. Sometimes it's too late to get to the airport, let's say in Thunder Bay, to intervene. And I hope with this approach that has been put forward, it hopefully will help us. But what I'm asking right now, right this very minute, right today, what are we doing? Are we doing enough based on the services that NAP's supposedly supposed to provide to our First Nation when it comes to seizures, when it comes to searches, when it comes to helping our bylaw officers? We have 2 or 3 of them at the airport. Oftentimes they're alone. They get so much things that they're facing, even from our community members when they're being searched. They get all those things directed to them, and that's what's really happening in our community, Gatineau. That's why we're asking. We need to do more. We need to do more when we submit information to NAPS or the people that are supposed to be getting information about drug activities. It's happening in all our communities. There has to be a better way to streamline those things, to effectively follow up those things. We know that there's some issues that may be deemed confidential or private, but our First Nation, I believe, has been providing information for quite some time. There's been very little or no action. That's what we're asking for here. I'm sorry to say this, but it's real. Because we're losing lives when we don't act. We're losing lives when we hesitate. We need to do something to support our communities, to support our frontline people that are actually doing the best they can. And we need our officers to be part of that strategy, that plan. We need them. You need us. Like when a NAP officer is alone in the community, most times there's only one officer in our community. Our community steps up, hires securities to not overload that officer. That's what we're asking for. Do the same for us when we're asking for that support, because we know how important it is for that officer to have that support. We hire our own securities to monitor, to observe, and report. That's what we do in our community. And that helps the officer that comes in. But at critical times, that's where he or she will come out. And that's very important. And that's where that critical times also occurs at the airports, when we're doing our searches, when we're implementing our program in our communities, in our community. So I just wanted to ask that anin mayam enachiging, I guess. What are we doing right now to help our communities, to try to figure out a way how we can address some of these issues that we're talking about? It's important. It's life-saving. It allows people to work together to try to address some of the issues that we're dealing with. We know that the searching will not resolve everything, but it's part of a deterrent. It is. It's preventative. We're trying to do that in our community, so hopefully somebody can answer my question. Migach.
Thank you, Chief, for your question.
Yeah, Chief Munoz, acknowledging your question in terms of, what are we doing right now? Well, I think when we look at what's been presented, what are we doing right now? We did try to address this issue by bringing this forward at negotiations, and we were shot down. We knew by having the conversations, not only with yourself, but with many other chiefs around searching at the airports and searching at locations, and NAP's not being able to do what you want us to do. So when we look at the border control and we look at what we're doing with Wendigo, that is us doing something right now. We know that many of our communities expect more of NAPs in terms of the searching. And there are requirements for officers, legal requirements for officers to advance any search. However, when we look at the legalities in terms of what is the end goal, and that is to stop the drugs coming into our communities. So we just want the drugs off the street. So when you look at what we're developing and what legal counsel is developing, this will allow us to do that. So again, we're looking at, and this comes from all their meetings that we've been having, and certainly I really want to thank Wendigo for putting their legal counsel, making their legal counsel available to work with our legal counsel, develop those police authorities that come from existing laws, such as the criminal code, when it comes to the police powers. So having those police powers enacted through traditional laws, I know you don't, Julian, was just, ban bylaws, the traditional laws. Because that is the direction that, many of our communities want to go. They want to go incorporate the traditional laws. And looking at incorporating the police powers within this gives us that ability to act. We may not lay criminal charges on this, but we'll get the drugs off the street with these authorities. So we can help intervene when it is suspected that people who are bringing in items that are going to cause harm, we can intercept that. So, because that's been one of the, during my time with meetings with leaders, is that's been one of the biggest items that we've been dealing with. And in talking with our board and talking with our legal counsel is, how do we help the communities and how can we be proactive to help the communities? So this is us being proactive. So again, when we look at the officers at the local level, at your level, their chief, in terms of helping out at the airports, we have to do, with this, we have to do education. We're going to have to make sure that they're fully aware what their authorities are currently. But I think when we look at what's being developed, this will allow us to really assist our communities and be proactive. So that is why when we looked at the border control, we knew that it was going to be issues around the searching, like what the proxy for Moose Cree had said. And that is why when we looked at working with Wendigo, and when we had a meeting with Chief Wesley in Cat Lake in May, this is the reason why we knew we had to do more. So incorporating those police authorities allow us to do more. Okay. Certainly, I know, Chief, you touch upon one officer working in your community, and I'll have more information on this, because in September we are having our meeting with all our stakeholders. So the 34 communities that we police, we are going to be bringing them to Thunder Bay, and we're going to provide an update onto the state of NAPS. And I will let you know, just for everyone here, is that we are short. We are short personnel, to the point that we have over 45 vacancies in our front line right now. 45 vacancies. And that's not including the people who are off on injuries, which we have about over 20. And many of those injuries that the officers have are mental health injuries. So it does take time for officers to come back from those injuries. Even though you may see a person who's able-bodied, but yet they are suffering mentally. And helping our officers get over that does take time. So chiefs, I'll provide more information in terms of our state of where we're at our September meeting in September, the week of September 14th. And we'll have more of a breakdown in terms of where we're at with our personnel, because I know that you're seeing officers working alone, whereas we did have a number of officers through our last couple of negotiations. We had funding to hire 79, and we hired a lot of officers. But now with the recent shortages, which is caused by other services experiencing shortages, so they're hiring experienced officers, and where they're hiring them from are the smaller services. So what are we doing? So in June, I had an opportunity to speak at the Ontario Association Chiefs of Police meeting at Niagara-on-the-Lake to let these chiefs of police know that when you hire a NAPS officer, especially from our remote communities, it creates public safety issues. It does. So I will have another opportunity to convey this again to the Ontario Association Chiefs of Police, and that's going to be in Thunder Bay in September. I'm going to reiterate that fact, and we're going to take them north. We're going to have 2 planes that are going to go north to our communities, and we're going to show them the reality of when you hire a NAPS officer, what it does to that community. So again, I'm not mincing any words. I'm going to tell it to you straight, in that we are short. We are probably about 60 officers short. Okay.
I don't know if I'll ask a question, but I'll just say it outright. I actually don't see that in my community. What you guys are talking about. I don't see that support in our community when it comes to addressing the drug issue or the issues that we're facing in the community. I don't see that. We don't see that. That has to change. We've talked about the shortages for how long already? We've talked about it so long. I don't know how many times I've sat in these meetings, talk about the shortages of police officers. And yet today, the issue continues. The suffering continues. The addictions. The high-end drugs that are coming into our communities are rampant right now. We need to do a better job on the urgency of these issues. With all due respect to the Chief of Police, and I appreciate all the hard work he's done, I cannot wait until September to get a response how we're going to address some of the issues we're facing in our community. My community needs help. It needs help right now. And this is for me speaking for my community now. It needs that help right now. I have people that are overdosing in our First Nation on issues that are often very difficult to bear. We have families, we have kids that are being apprehended because of the increase that we're seeing in our communities, in our community. So we need the help. We need it now when it comes to the support from the police service that's supposed to be servicing us. We got to stop making excuses when it comes to shortages. We've talked about that for so long already, and I really apologize for saying that. With all due respect, we have things that we need to do right now. We need to act. We need to act in a way that produces the results that we need in our community, in the community of Nishkandaga, for example. And I hope we can do that. We need to do that. We need it. We need that support. I cannot stress enough because lives are at risk right now. You don't know if you're going to have another drug overdose in the community. You don't know what those drugs are laced with. We don't know that because they're coming off the streets and coming into our communities. And we need that help, we need that support, we need that cooperation, we need that partnership from NAPS and any other agency that can help us. Yeah.
Again, thank you, Chief, for that. And I know we've had a number of meetings this year where we've had those talks. So in terms of looking forward, yeah, absolutely, we can have those talks with your, again, have these ongoing talks, and we'll always have them, regardless of any community, whether it's Niskandaga, Martin Falls, Moose Cree, Attawapiskat, we're going to have these talks. They're never easy, You can hear the frustration from Chief Munoz, and it's rightfully so. What are we as a police service doing? But right now, we do, like in order to do proper investigations, we need people. And right now, we are short, and that's the reality. And what are we doing about it? Yes, we are going to be proactive in our recruitment. And certainly, we need youth. We need people from our communities. We don't see that right now. In fact, we're not getting a lot of applications from our people, and we'd like to see that. We'd like to see an improvement on that. We'd like to see an increase on that so we can help our people. But Chief, and certainly I understand where you're coming from, and I know we've had talks, and we'll always be able to have those talks. So certainly, come September, when we look at our NAPS meeting, again, this is one of the things that we received through our negotiations was to have the ability to have these meetings to talk specific to police issues, because I know when we have it at this forum, policing tends to take take over the agenda when we're only allotted 30 minutes for it or an hour for it. So, and one of the things that really starts out to initiate any investigation is that we need people to come forward with information. I know a lot of the leaders are approached with information, and that information is usually secondhand. It's very hard to use that secondhand information into warrants when what's needed is first-hand knowledge as to what is going on. Second and third-party information is not very helpful. We need direct information. We need people from our communities to start stepping up and providing information to us. That's what's frustrating from the policing end, is that people come to us and say, yep, that house there, they're selling drugs. All right, give us a statement. But I don't really want to do that. So it's frustrating for us as well. So again, certainly when it comes September, we will have some of our policing partners there. OPP is going to be at this meeting, because one of the biggest issues that we're seeing, that we've heard from our communities, is that the comm center. So comm center, calling into the comm center, providing that information. So we are going to have the OPP attend this meeting, and they've agreed to attend our meeting to talk about the comm center issue. So again, we've heard you, we're listening to you, and we are trying to work to make things better. I know things don't seem to be moving fast enough at times, but sometimes slow and steady is what's needed. So Chief, looking forward to having you in September, and certainly we'll be coming to your community next week, and if you want to have some time next week at your community festival, we can have some time and we can have some good dialogue.
Thank you, Chief. So I see two hands raised, Chief Nakaji and Chief Wesley. And then we do have an opportunity again when the resolution comes to the floor tomorrow, because it is past 3 o'clock and we gotta go get our lipstick on apparently. So, Chief Nakaji.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank all the chiefs that have spoken before me and the presentation. Thanks for the presentation. I was bugging Chief Morrison that I'll have 100 questions, but this is more just comments. It's no questions. First of all, I just want to say thanks. It's been a long time working with you, phone calls late at night, and I do appreciate the progress that's happening, I'll say. I know, I understand it takes time. It takes time, but I'm happy to see that community issues are being addressed slowly. But I do agree with Warren Proxy of Moose Creek, where education needs to start. Education on how to report illegal activity. That's something I truly believe in, because yes, I as chief and even as deputy chief used to get a lot of information. And I keep repeating that by the time I get it, it's second or third hand and it's useless. But then when it's first hand information, and that'll be directly from you, I tell these people that come to see me, talk to an officer, make a statement. And they do. They're willing to, some of them in the action, I guess, when they do make a statement, it seems like they feel it doesn't go anywhere anyways. But I know it takes time in creating a case. I understand those things now more than I did, I guess I'll say, when I first started. But through educating myself, and then working along with Naps and Eric back there. So that's who my cell phone, it was simple, answered right away. And I appreciate those things that happen. But I know, I understand what Chief Munoz is also saying, is action is needed. So that's something we do all need. But I wanted to bring up, and I did bring this up to my chair, the chair of NAPS on our meeting with Mshkegok, is training for officers as well to deal with mental health, people with mental health, but also children with autism. I know in my community, there's concern of an autistic child, how an officer is
afraid or something how to deal with a child with autism, or saying it's assault. But maybe for myself, I'm just starting to educate myself on autism. Is it's about authority, and you raise your voice, they will not listen. Because you have to be at their level. That's the way I'm understanding them. So that's something that we need training, and I just thought I'll bring it up here because it is growing, something that's growing with mental health and children with autism. So that's something we need training on. And I just say again, thank you, and hopefully I can make it to the meeting, even as a delegate, to get to provide my 100 questions.
Did you get the question? Training on mental health and also autism.
Chief Nagaji, certainly thank you for keeping your questions to 2 questions. So certainly with the training, officers already do receive training on mental health, but when they're at the Ontario Police College, but it's not enough. Like there's not enough interaction on that. But certainly we do have the capabilities within our own service. We have this at our training center, the ability to program basically an interactive program to deal with a person on a screen who has mental health abilities, and your reaction would then trigger a response from the screen, and you have to react to that. So again, we do have that capabilities. We do have modern technology where we can program dealing with a mental health person. So again, it's we can make those adjustments and to our training to ensure that our officers get more exposure to dealing with people with mental health, because we are seeing we are seeing an increase in mental health calls. That is happening. That's really happened during COVID, and again, we can look at providing some of that information on the calls for service that really have gone up during the COVID. Domestic violence, sexual assaults, mental health calls. Those are 3 areas that we're seeing a really huge increase in calls for service. But with respect to the other disabilities that people may have, like such as autism, I know there are different spectrums of people, even youth who are on the, I guess, with autism. And again, that is something that we know that we need improvement on in terms of mental health. So again, with our training capabilities, we do have that ability to program at our training center types of calls that our officers would deal with, and we can program that. So it's noted, and certainly my deputy chief over here is also hearing that, and we can make sure that our training is adjusted to ensure that officers have that education and know how to deal with people with disabilities and mental health issues. But yes, so looking forward to seeing you in September as well.
Okay, thank you, Police Chief, for that. And we'll take one last comment from Chief Russell Wesley, and then we're going to have to move into the next agenda item. But as I said, there will be opportunity tomorrow when the resolution hits the floor.
Hello. I'm sorry. I just noticed the agenda, and what I wanted to speak to generates a lot of issues. So I'm just going to leave it to tomorrow. I'm mindful of the agenda items here, and there's some important ones that need to be discussed. So I'm just going to leave my comments.
Thank you, Chief Wesley. So with that, we'll move into the next item. So I'd like to call upon Deputy Grand Chief Achvanisham to introduce the Reclamation and Healing Strategy agenda item.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. There's been some very important discussions and feedback and debates in terms of the items that we've been discussing, and very grateful to be able to hear the comments and be part of that. So, so at this time, we're going to try to reduce the time on this particular presentation, because following this, we'll be getting hearing a presentation from the Women's Council, and then we had allotted some time for us to discuss the issue of addictions and mental health issues that was asked to be placed on the agenda. So, so we'll be very brief in terms of this particular agenda item. So as you know, we renamed our Indian Residential School program to Reclamation and Healing. We have provided some information to you in previous meetings. So we will quickly go through our presentation, and I'm going to ask our Director of Reclamation and Healing, Rachel Kakigamic, to come and to join me. But so we given you a presentation, and then we also shared a letter with you. And I want to speak briefly on that. So as you are all aware, at the end of July, Pope Francis visited Canada, and this was you know, a visit that was very important to some of our survivors. And I say some, because there was survivors as well that did not welcome that visit, or feel that, you know, that it was needed in terms of their place, their path of healing. But for some, it was very important. And some people did travel. We had a few survivors that traveled to Mushkachis, and it's about an hour and 50 minutes past Edmonton, west of Edmonton, and we went to that particular event, and so we heard from the Pope in terms of his apology and his statement. We found that there was gaps there, and we addressed that. And one of the things that we decided to do was that we would present him with a letter, even though we did have an opportunity to speak to him directly, where we secured some time in Quebec City for one of our survivors to address him. And but we knew that we were only going to have a few minutes, and that all what we wanted to say would not, that we wouldn't have that time. So what we did was, there was a letter that was drafted that we presented to the Pope, and so a copy of that letter has been presented to you. So these are concerns that collected from survivors and other healing strategies, and also from our Safe Council advisors. And as I mentioned before, our Safe Council advisors are all survivors. And so some of the main points that we had was that we needed to have the Catholic Church and the other religious institutions and the other entities that were part of the Indian residential school program, like, stand with us in terms of and invest in our healing initiatives. So we're quite firm on that. And that one of the other issues that we presented or asked was that that they resend the Doctrine of Discovery. And I know that you're all familiar with that. You know, it's, you know, that was an illegal, I guess, declaration that pretty well allowed the Europeans to claim and steal the land, not only North America, but other parts that were inhabited by indigenous people in this world. So there's many other First Nation groups that as well support that. So that's the letter that we presented. And so at this time, I'll have Rachel come up, and she'll go through the presentation very briefly, as quickly as we can, in order to respectfully provide some time to the Women's Council, and also for us to have a conversation about the addictions and the other social issues. So Rachel, you can. Yeah, there's a clicker.
Okay. Miigwech. My name is Rachel Kakagamic. I'm the Director of Reclamation and Healing. I'm from Peguis First Nation, Treaty 1, Manitoba. So I'll get started with this. I can run through it in about 7 minutes. I've been timed before, if my clicker works. There we go. Okay, so this is some of the background on the reclamation and healing strategy. Some of this information was provided during the spring assembly, but just a little bit of a refresher. So it was mandated, Mandate 2110 was passed in response to the finding of 215 unmarked graves in residential school sites in Kamloops, BC. NCTR has confirmed the identities of more than 4,000 children who died at these sites, but we expect and we know that those numbers will grow. So I introduced our department during the spring assembly. This was our vision and mission statements. So our vision was healing the generations. And the mission is to provide engagement, support, and capacities to survivors, their families, and communities within the NAN territory in response to Indian residential schools and day schools and the lasting impacts and legacy in a way that fosters healing and a way forward while advancing initiatives that support reclamation and reconciliation. So the strategy is utilizing a 6-pillared approach to create a response that is comprehensive and will encompass the needs of communities. They are research, communications, healing initiatives, education, justice, and support and advocacy. Uh-oh, wrong way. Okay. So the strategy, it is still in draft version. The strategic plan is being developed utilizing the pillared approach as strategic goals with activities under each pillar. Some of the objectives in the strategy are to undertake research to document historical and contemporary impacts of residential schools and compile an archive to assist with access to records. Implement an effective communication platform to inform survivors of relevant activities and research. Support broader awareness and understanding of survivor and intergenerational impacts. Support caretaker communities and other First Nations to ensure appropriate resources are in place to support healing and community-led initiatives, and create partnership opportunities with organizations that can contribute to knowledge needed to support communities in the individual strategies and initiatives. Okay, so strategic goal number 1, these are some of the activities under the research pillar. Research from the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation, research from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, caretaker communities gathering and follow-up, engagement with project coordinators, and tracking and archiving new developments, research, press, and other information with respect to residential schools, both within NAN territory and across Canada. Under the communications pillar, developing a standalone website for Reclamation and Healing Department, utilizing Facebook that will reflect information from the website with an emphasis on encouraging communication with those affected by residential and day schools, maintaining contact with caretaker communities and initiatives, similar initiatives across Canada, and providing current and relevant information. Our website is set to go live by the end of this month, hopefully. Pillar number 3 is healing initiatives. So we're looking to review, improve, and expand the activities within the Reclamation and Healing Department. This one also includes mental health reform, and in conjunction with caretaker communities, support directly and indirectly survivor and community events, as well as NAN-sponsored events. Under education, we have curriculum development. Looking to amend the Education Act to include curriculum about Indian residential schools, increasing awareness and education, conducting research, and collect curriculum support materials with respect to Indian residential school programs across Canada, and share materials with provincial education systems. Under justice, we have track and document the evolving justice landscape with respect to residential and day schools, including the progress and timing of legal settlements. Provide support to communities and survivors undertaking class action. Support during events and gatherings to ensure survivors have opportunity to participate. And advocacy for Indian residential schools to be qualified and defined as genocide. The final pillar, support and advocacy. Ongoing liaison meetings with survivors and caretaker communities. Support the implementation of community-led strategies and initiatives by providing links and contacts to acquire appropriate resources. Support lobby efforts with the provincial and federal governments, including with respect to funding and access to government historical records, and providing community supports for the implementation of specific plans to address reclamation, healing, and justice. Here's our anticipated outcomes. So improved awareness, education, and information sharing, enhanced capacity, improved well-being and quality of life, and meaningful partnerships. So some updates from our department. So memorandum of understanding with National Center of Truth and Reconciliation for access to records. Gathering of NAN caretaker communities, which is coming up in the next couple of weeks. Community visits and networking, and I will touch on this in just 1 second. Deputy Grand Chief has addressed the Popple visit to Canada. Supporting the NAN's class action, and a nationwide network, which I think we'll also touch on in 1 second. Okay. So it has been my honor and privilege while involved with this department to have had the opportunity to visit some very amazing communities outside of our territory. To be able to learn from them and their experiences has been powerful and valuable. Here's some pictures of some of the communities we've visited and the residential school sites. I would like to invite Deputy Grand Chief Anna Betty to speak a little bit more to this.
Yeah, we feel it's very important for us to build those relationships with other communities, First Nation groups that have Indian residential schools, in their communities are, if they're developing a strategy, a healing strategy, because one of our goals is to have like a nationwide like network, and then maybe sometime in the future to have like a real like a nationwide gathering of some sort. So so far up to this time, we have gone to Kamloops, and we have also been to Kawasis and Long Plains and Brantford, the Brantford Institute. And those are communities that have already developed and are working on developing their strategy, and that are doing searches, because we feel that we can learn from them if they have an existing process in place, and we can share that with our communities within the Anishinaabe Nation, because that is one of our objectives, is to be a technical support for those particular communities and other survivors within the Anishinaabe Nation.
Miigwech. So that's concluded the presentation. Should you need any supports, up on the screen there's some supports that are available. NAN Hope is a service that's available 24/7 by a variety of means. And there's also the Indian Residential School Resolution Health Supports Crisis Line. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me or my program. Miigwech.
And also, chiefs and proxies, tomorrow we're going to be put a resolution on the floor, because we have been learning that in order for us to have an MOU with the National Center of Truth and Reconciliation, for us to be able to have an archive system within the Anishinaabe Nation for the people of NAN, that we need to have a supporting letter or supporting resolution from you. And so we're going to be presenting that tomorrow. So we feel that it will really benefit our caretaker communities and other communities that want to be able to access any documents. And it will also be able to, for us to ensure that when we develop curriculum and propose to develop curriculum, that we will have accurate documentation to be able to support that. So that's a resolution that we will be presenting on the floor tomorrow. So that ends our presentation, and as I said, we were trying to go as quickly as possible, even though we know this information is very important, but we wanted to take this time to share what we have with you at this time. Chmingwich.
Thank you, Deputy Grand Chief, and thank you, Ms. Kakagamak, for your presentation. So there is going to be a resolution tomorrow when we do resolutions on access to information for this topic, reclamation and healing strategy. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to my co-chair on the next topic.
Okay, Miigwech. So we're going to move right along the agenda. I think it's about 3:30 now. The next topic is the Women's Council update. I'm not sure who's making the presentation. Okay. So we'll have the whole group, I think, is coming up. And we will have the presentation, and then we will forego the break for this afternoon. Then we'll get into the next agenda item following the presentation.
Yesterday my mouth was so dry. Good afternoon, everyone. I am pleased to provide the update on behalf of the NAN Women's Council. The NAN Women's Council was mandated by a resolution in 2002. The council operates with terms of reference, and members are selected by an election process and adherence to the NAN Women's Council electoral procedures. There are 8 member seats with ex officio non-voting seats designated for 1. Ushkatasag Council representative, 2 female elder representatives, and the deputy grand chief who holds the NAN Women's portfolio, who is currently Deputy Grand Chief Annabeti at Nebeniskam. The Women's Council receives technical and administrative support from the Women's Initiative Department. The COVID-19 pandemic impacted many aspects of everyone's daily lives. Unfortunately, the Women's Council's work plan was also affected. However, despite the challenges that the pandemic created, we have been able to work with the Women's Initiatives Department and Deputy Grand Chief at Nebeniskam to ensure that activities continued, although the scope of the nature of the activities had no change. Over the last few months, the Council has been providing guidance to the Women's Initiative staff, who are both relatively new to the department, which is Loretta and Jamie Lee. The Women's Council assisted with developing a webinar series which focused on mental health and empowering women. We've also provided nominations to the Championing Women's Leaders social media campaign. So far, the campaign has featured 5 strong women leaders from NAN communities as role models. With a focus on addressing and preventing violence against Indigenous women, girls, and gender diverse people. The Championing Women's Leaders campaign continued over the next year, and the Women's Council will continue to be involved in the nomination process. One of our members, Teresa Sutherland, right here, has participated as NAN's representative on the Ontario Indigenous Women's Council and will continue in that role and attend meetings going forward. We continue to highlight days of recognition such as International Women's Day on March 8th and the National Day of Awareness for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, Girls, and Two-Spirit people on May 5th. Almost all of our activities and work with NAN has been virtual since the pandemic was declared. However, the Women's Council has met several times since the spring, and we are working to reset now that the COVID-19 public health measures are being eased or lifted. Being able to meet in person is something that was really missed when the pandemic hit, and we are grateful to be able to sit around an actual table together. We actually met just last night and reviewed and updated our terms of reference. We are also updating our portfolio system so that it aligns with the NAN executive portfolio system. This will ensure that the Women's Council voices, perspectives, and guidance is included in the work undertaken by the numerous committees and tables that exist in the NAN organization. Yesterday, the situation with AFN National Chief Roseanne Archibald was discussed. The members of the Women's Council have tremendous respect for her, and we're happy to show our support by attending the AFN Annual General Assembly in July. Honoring and supporting our women leaders is so very important. Together with the Women's Initiative Department and Deputy Grand Chief at Nebeniskam, we have identified and/or reaffirmed priorities that require the Council's attention and action. June 3rd marked 3 years since the missing and murdered Indigenous Women National Inquiry final report, and that 231 calls for justice were released. Pushing for the implementation of the calls for justice is critical to increase the safety of Indigenous women, girls, and gender diverse people so that we don't continue to lose our mothers, aunties, sisters, and children. The NAN Women's Council will provide guidance to the Women's Initiatives Department as they review and take stock of the implementation of the calls. especially within NAN territory. The members of the Women's Council are all personally committed to push for implementation, and we will use our individual and collective voices as often as we can in whatever forum we can. Along with the pandemic, a lack of resources has limited the Women's Council's activities. In particular, the annual Women's Gathering has not occurred due to a lack of available funds. However, the intention is to hold the gathering this fall or winter, and we will assist with the coordination of the event, which will focus on empowerment, leadership, and the prevention of violence against women, girls, and gender diverse people. As I mentioned earlier, the Women's Council is selected through an election process. At this point in time, the Women's Council is overdue for an election. Again, due to the pandemic and insufficient funding to host the Women's Gathering, which is where the election traditionally takes place. Given the extenuating circumstances, the NAN Women's Council has decided by consensus to extend their current term to 2024 to align with the next election of this NAN Executive Council. In the months ahead, we are looking forward to addressing the issues and priorities that affect the women, families, and future generations of the Anishinaabe Nation. We are committed to our roles and will continue to do our best to provide input, advice that will support the empowerment of women and social transformation in NAN. And at this time, that is the end of my presentation on the NAN woman's role. But at this time, I would like to acknowledge a member of Fort Albany First Nation, Danny Matarawaban, who now lives in Ottawa, Piscat. Danny has started a walk 9 days ago. He started his walk from Ottawa and will be in the outskirts of North Bay this evening. Reclaiming our steps past, present, and future. And the focus of this walk is to open a dialogue about honoring and implementing the treaty, which at this meeting is often talked about. The walking distance for Danny is 694 kilometers. Today, when I'm looking at my Fitbit watch, I've only done maybe 6,000 steps. That's pretty, that's not even 4 kilometers. But anyway, with that said, I just want to see if my ladies here want to have an additional remark. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Brenda Fox from Michigan. I'm pretty sure you all know me and recognize me. One of the issues as a woman's role, a woman's council, is to create balance in whatever we do. And sitting on a women's council, and that's one of the things that we get into many issues. We're involved in many tables, and one of the things that I really noticed is the balance is that we need men. We need a men's table. We need a men's group, because the politicians that we have, it's mostly men leadership, and very proud of the women that are in that leadership role at this table. But at the advisory table, we need a men's table, and we had discussed that yesterday, and that would create balance, because to the right of me, when I sit at that table, is elders, and they have both men and women, and to the left of me, there's youth, and they have men and women. As women, we need men that will be able to tell us what their needs are, both mental and health wise, because we don't know those things. We've all raised sons. I have sons, but a lot of times I'm a woman, and I cannot address some of the things men go through. So I think that's one of the things that I would like to see at this at NAN, is to have a men's table.
I'd like to thank each and every chief that are sitting here in regards for serving their community. Minguish for your time. I'd like to speak more on Danny Matarawaban. original community member of Fort Albany. He got married into Arwabaskat and he resides there. He started his walk, and I think of him daily because he's walking in regards to our treaty to I was gonna start talking Cree again. Stat anameno kagi Benjaminigo kagi Benjanas Kamutanano Mina Chigana Muchagatek Egonama Egagi Chabanich was Metane Esakapusich and the treaty Gagustano Monagigi to Tenano Gegon Kistinamata Magawa Napeo Genego Hakanehad had managed the Ebemotet Ginanos Niga Magosche Gosamanano Getochabanano Mr. Mabote Hebegot the Sonich Naspin Kistenamanina Emotet Egonamaga Ewishe with the Mogahanak Kistenamai when the Han and the Metota. But I'll just leave it as is with where I'm talking to our Mashkegowak communities and families. Mingosh.
Hello, good afternoon. I'd like to say welcome to everybody that's here. I'm thinking, thank you for all being here. One thing I've been thinking about being on this NAN Women's Council is the addiction, the high rates of addiction that we have in our communities. The drugs and alcohol. I myself have gone through a lot, losing loved ones with the addictions of with the drug addictions. It's been a journey here with this pandemic. We had a lot of virtual meetings that we sometimes at home I was very annoyed with our internet because I would be online, I would get disconnected, I'd call in. I think sometimes I annoyed them with the amount of times that I had to keep calling in. And I'd like to thank Anna Betty for leading us on. She's a very passionate woman with the stuff with the things that she's taking on, and especially Loretta and Jamie Lee over there that we can go to when we need to. I guess that's it for me. I'm gonna hand it over to Bertha if she's online.
She online? So I don't know if Bertha is on the virtual forum. Bertha, if you are on, go ahead. We can have Bertha unmuted. Okay, she's not on. So with that, thank you very much to the Women's Council, Miigwech, for the presentation. I don't know if there's any comments or questions from the floor for the Women's Council. Also, these are sort of a series of portfolio items from Deputy Grand Chief Ajdi Beneskam. If there's any other discussion or comments on the reclamation and healing presentation that was made. I know we did say there was a resolution coming up tomorrow. There will be an opportunity for discussion, but I don't know if there was any comments or questions on the reclamation presentation. There is an opportunity right now. Okay, well, I don't see any hands going up on the virtual platform as well. So we're going to move right along. We've got two more items. Again, forego the break. We'll get right into, again, Deputy Grand Chief Ajdi Beneskam Community Development of Childcare Centers. And we also added homelessness, addictions, and community issues. So we'll deal with that. Chief Wesley.
I was just reminding you that I thought we had to drop that agenda item. And
Yes, actually, that item was moved to Deputy Grand Chief's next agenda item, so thank you. So we're going to move to the homelessness, addictions, and community issues. Deputy Grand Chief Ajni Benescom had graciously allowed this agenda item. I don't know if you have any comments from the executive. And then I know Chief Muñoz brought the item to the agenda. So I'm going to look to the executive.
No, thank you. Thank you, Deputy Grand Chief Ashley Peneshcom, for agreeing to make some room on the agenda for this. We, as many of the chiefs know, and our delegates and those listening online know, we had a mental health summit, and it was mandated at our Chiefs Assembly in the spring to hold this summit. It was a good 3 days. It was very heavy and powerful, and you know, we did set some dates or a commitment to another assembly, not assembly, but a gathering, a summit, whether it's twice a year or next year, given that the reality is that we are in COVID recovery still, many of us in our communities, ourselves as leaders, society in general is in COVID recovery. You look at the shortage, healthcare, pilots, airlines, everywhere we look, there's this state of COVID recovery, people with long COVID, and then the mental health issues that have consumed our First Nations and our general population. And I think many of us don't know yet, some of us may, but the extent of the mental health issues that we endured as communities, that our people endured, and you see an increase in drug addiction, an increase in domestic issues and alcohol, whatever it may be, but that was what we heard at our last assembly, and that was the direction we had, and we had a good 3 days. But the action, once again, going back to what Chief Muñoz said, leadership is action. Action needs to occur yesterday. So Chief Muñoz brought this up, that he will not be here tomorrow and he needs to get home, but he wanted this on the agenda. So we don't really have a set agenda for items to discuss. I think it's a general discussion. But before that, I know that some of our executive had some input because they were they had attended this summit, and we all acknowledge that mental health has a part in all of our work, our portfolios, and that it's the underlying issue of that's causing many of the issues within our First Nations. So I'll ask our next executive member to come and say some words. Thank you.
So during the summit that was held in Thunder Bay, we had, I would say, close to 100 people that came to participate, individuals that were leaders. We've had frontline workers, and then we had individuals that were very interested in terms of being part of the conversation. And throughout the 3 days, you know, we focused on looking at the solutions, gathering those ideas from the people that were participating. And some of you were part of that summit as well. And So we began by talking a little bit about things that had been done in the past. And I mentioned those particular reports to you yesterday. And if you were to look at those reports, there's certain things that are documented in those reports. And some of them were again repeated and stressed within that summit that we had. And education and awareness, like being proactive when it comes to talking about drug use and alcohol use, and raising awareness about other mental health issues. And one of the other thing, contributing factors that we see is sexual abuse. Not only does it come entrenched from the Indian residential school system, where a lot of that comes from, and building those unhealthy, behaviors within that very unhealthy environment where many of our people went to, and needing to address that. And how do we develop those protective factors? How do we develop community initiatives and finding those safe spaces to be able to do that? So those are some of the things that were talked about, not only at that summit, but also in those reports that I made reference to. And we have existing programs right now, our Choose Life, our family well-being. We have our NADAP program that we can redesign to ensure that it focuses more on awareness. And we have many knowledge keepers in our communities that can be part of developing community strategies. And as well as we have, many strong leaders that are willing to commit to, or have committed to the change that needs to happen. Land-based programming was another thing that kept coming up in those conversations, and that's also documented in those reports. So what does that mean, land-based? Does that mean that we go back and live off the land? Not necessarily. It's about that spiritual connection as well to the land that has been part of our families and our ancestors, and being able to, utilize those things as a form of therapy, and also learning skills to build our self-esteem. It's there. And it was, we had a few people that came to share about their programs, including Connie, and she presented on hers as well. So those are the things that we need to build on and that we need to share and to learn from. Language revitalization was also one of the priorities that was mentioned, not only at the summit. Again, it was mentioned in the other documents that I made reference to, and spirituality, and reclaiming our culture. And when I say spirituality, I'm not just talking about our traditional spirituality. I'm also talking about building and enhancing our Christianity practices as well, because many of our people are choosing to follow that way, and we must support that. And also we have to look at all the partners that we have available, that are in existence, that we have, that certain authority over, such as our our police services and also our child and family services, because they have a lot of capacity to be able to do more prevention. You know, we have some child and family services that have existing treatment programs, or they have, you know, they can have awareness programs or more support of more community-based processes. Like we really need to push for that. And those of you that are board members of any child and family services, I encourage you to push that at those tables where you have that authority to do that. And I just want to speak briefly about homelessness, because that is something that that I carry as one of my portfolio items. You know, let's be more, when it comes to action, like let's get in those kitchens and prepare that food. You know how empowering and what an impact that will be if our people see us, when our people see us doing that, to see that they matter. You know, I've been doing that for many years now, and a few times leadership will come and join me, and they go and eat with the people, and it's such a, you know, so powerful to see that. And so let's do that more. I know that's just a small contribution, a small act, but it's very, you know, impactful for those individuals that are eating in those shelters or eating in that church because they have no place to go. And if you're there sitting with them, or if you're preparing food for them, that is very meaningful. And any portfolio items that I have, that I carry, I will ensure that to address addictions and homelessness and these other social issues will be part of any of the work plans that we have. So that's those are a few of my comments that I wanted to share. English.
Miigwech to Grand Chief and Deputy Grand Chief at Chief Chief Wesley.
I have a lot to say. I've been wanting to see a lot of things, but anyhow, my community, Cat Lake, has been struggling with addiction for a long time. More so in the last few years with meth coming into the community. Meth is rampant in my community. Chief Keewaywin declared a state of emergency back in the early 2000s. At that time, we put out numbers as to what our addiction rate was at the time. 17 years ago, those numbers are virtually the same, if not more. Nothing has changed in 17 years. I don't know how much longer I'm going to be yelling and screaming about the whole addiction thing, because drugs and alcohol contribute to all of our social problems that we have in our community. The children in care, the incarceration rate, the death rate, all attributed to drugs and alcohol. But yet here are organizations that are sitting around this table here and listening to us scream about these things. Let me ask you this question. Do any of you know how many people have died from overdose in my community? the organizations, NAPS, NAN. Does any one of your organizations know how many people have OD'd in my community? Do you know how many people OD'd in Niskandaga or Port Albany? You don't, because you don't communicate amongst your organizations. Our main organization is NAN. Every organization that we have is subsidiary to that, and responsible responsible to NAN. The biggest problem that I face in my community of Cat Lake is the barrier of my own organizations. They're there to do something, but they're doing nothing. Do you know what the lineup rate is at the coroner's office in Toronto? No, you don't, because you don't collect the right statistics immediately and available on hand. This is what I've been squawking about for the last 2 years when I've been arguing and fighting for an addiction and a treatment plan for our people. I presented ideas. A number of other chiefs have assisted my community in presenting these ideas. But in most cases, it all falls on deaf ears when the solution is made very clear as to what it is. We've demonstrated that over and over in many years, but the will and capacity of our organization is the barrier itself. I'm tired. All of us chiefs are tired, saying the same things over and over. It's very simple for us to find out how many people have died in our communities due to meth or cocaine. How many people have died from drowning? Statistical history of those people. This is what we need to take. This is what I was talking about when Wayne raised the concerns about homelessness, addiction, and that we needed to do something now. Well, all that information is available. We just need to gather all of that. And this is what I've been asking for the last 2 years. Where is that data? SLIFNA has been sitting on all this data for years, but yet we can't access that. Get some researchers and gather all that information, put it together into the action plan that we've been asking for. I even identified a date as to the earliest opportunity we can present this case, and even presented an action plan as to how we're going to raise these to the public so they can really hear what's happening in our communities. We have the leaders here that can raise these issues and make them public. We'll do that. That's our job. What we don't have is the information to back up what we're saying. No, I'm sorry, I'm a little harsh, but this is how I feel. And just recently I buried a community member. I don't know how many more I'm going to bury. I speak for the other chiefs when I say that. We really need to get in tune with our communities and what's happening in our communities, and those have to be documented. But right now, you can't tell me what happened over in Snappy Cree, because you don't know, you don't record that information. Anyways, that's what I wanted to rant about. There's a solution. We presented it. I even offered a resolution as to how we could do that as a means of doing it. It's just a recommendation, but it's up to the chiefs whether they want to accept that or not. But that's my idea on how we do things. As far as the addiction issue relates to my community,
Miigwech, Chief. Chief Crane. Oh, Frank, if you can pass the mic, okay.
Hello. I don't know where to start. I don't like, I don't know. I don't know what I want to say, and I don't know how to feel. Talking about our people here, our communities. And I have a passion for my people. That's why I continue to do what I do. I work for our people. And we buried the young people in the last few years through addictions. I buried a homeless young man just a few months ago from Winnipeg. So I know what our young people go through. They leave our communities. A lot of them don't survive. They don't make it. And we can't be sitting at these tables, rushing agendas. We're not together a lot of times. We, the chiefs, the leaders, are the ones that carry the burdens. I know a lot of things go hand in hand. I live with generational impact. I've lived with it. My late dad was there, so was I. Then my children didn't go in the system because, thank God, the residential school system closed. We have so much on our plates. All these issues compiled. I deal with sexual abuse at home. I don't even know where to begin because it's wrong for me to even try and address it. I'm the one that's guilty for bringing it out. Sorry, chiefs. I don't know how many of you live with what I live with. And I don't know who's listening to me up there, but I'm not ashamed to tell how I feel. I'm not ashamed to be crying. I think we've lived most of our lives crying. I just wanted to, I just had to let that go because how many chiefs live with this? There has to come to an end with the violence that we live with in our communities. It has to end. We have to stop it. The lateral violence that continues, the sexual violence that continues. And I am thankful for our leaders up there. Like I said, I meant it. We just have to figure out, we as leaders, how we're going to help our people. I have my daily struggles trying to teach my own children. I had to really, really, really work hard on my own parenting. After going through what I went through in the arrest system, I had to come out of there and figure out how I'm going to be a parent. And I don't know how many people around this table went through the same thing. I had to find a way how I was going to give life to my kids. And I knew that I had to change, things had to change. We cannot live in a cycle. We cannot continue to live in a cycle. And we have to want to get out of there for our children and grandchildren. Mia showing in the book, Mia Minike get on. Canning a continent to say, they shake at my young. I don't mind that you heard me crying and saw me crying. We need to do that. If we can't do that, then I don't know if we're ever going to get well. Mia Minike.
Miigwech, Chief. Thank you for openly sharing and having that discussion. So, miigwech. The floor is open. The agenda item, I will say, as co-chair of this assembly, I know it's a very heavy issue. It's something that cannot be solved in a half hour or an hour. But I know that one of the things that was said was that we can do a lot of talking, but it's more than talking that we need to do. We need to come up with something. Something needs to be done. And I think that was the purpose of calling for this agenda item to be discussed today. So the question then is, okay, what needs to be done? We can spend a lot of time talking about the challenges, the problems. We have the issues in a lot of our communities, most of our communities, and they're shared issues, they're common issues. So the challenge here, the hard part, is working collectively to deal with that and coming up with solutions. Chief Wesley has already provided some suggestions on what can be done, collecting data and using that data to come up with an action plan to move forward. So again, we're looking for what can be done. What can we do to move forward? What can we put in place now? Chief Munoz.
Thank you, Chair. Miigwech, Chief Agishkalagadich. Miigwech for sharing that. It's very courageous to hear somebody share those kind of things. And that's the reason why I think we're sitting around here today. We had our AGM in Matawa in Webekwe, and we hope the people of Webekwe are okay. They had some pandemic issues. But I wanted to just share again why it's so important. Where I to act on something. We had 3 speakers at that last day in Matawa at our AGM from our community. 2 ladies and a youth. They didn't have any speaking notes. They didn't have anything. All they did is share their lives, their experiences. The elderly lady talked about her daughter. A report was made, I believe Anna Betty shared that, the Sackney inquest report. She talked how she struggled, the kind of intergenerational things that she went through. And another youth talked. And this is where Chief Wesley talks about the incarceration rates. This youth talked about his dad. Lost his dad while he was in jail. This is a mother that talked about her kids. All 3 of her kids. Her son and her 2 daughters. She lost them to suicide. All 3 of them. When we're talking about generational issues, when we're talking about the trauma that our people go through, that's what we're talking about here. That's why we have to act in this form. It's incumbent of us to do something. We also, I was very proud and glad that our case manager, Stanley Nakaza, he wrote a letter to the executive and the council, expressing his concerns about the addictions and the homeless issues in our community. And his niece, she OD'd in Thunder Bay about a month ago. She had 6 kids. And that's the kind of things when we're talking about these issues, the life issues that we're talking about. Me mayamane adashandamange agana kichigardegane. They were in a gumination at the Shandamang Nongome, at the Shanjiging. Kegunske Kutin will pass maybe a resolution, but sometimes it loses its way. And that has to change. We have to change that. Chief Wesley talked about some of the things that we should be doing. We should consider doing. And in those things, I'm glad Deputy Grand Chief Ajani Eshkam said, let's put this on the agenda. But we need to find the time and space to talk about these issues, to allow our people to share some of the things. Is it Kendaman getting Agishuk Kurmaguane? I'll use an elder as an example. An elder is not going to tell you up front what he or she is going to tell, what he or she you should do. I need you to tell them. That is okay. Kemage gun kawawin the mag. Kema that the bahage of Madazun. Mishima Gawanjagago Kendan. What kind of approaches and strategies you can move forward with. And I think that's what our people are telling us, the experiences and the things that we see firsthand. It should tell us that we have to act. We need programs like treatment programs in our communities. This case manager, Stanley Agi the executive, and us. He was asking for help as a community case manager in our community. The limitations are limited. A detox center, but if you're on drugs or alcohol, there's limits to that, even in the city of Thunder Bay. We shouldn't nakanan chigiran agzov jagadega nanin. How can we address some of those things? The homelessness I say, I don't like to get in the go. It's really disheartening when you see a family pull the plug of their loved one because of homelessness, because of addictions. It hits you. It hits you to the core of who you are, why it continues today. That's why I wanted to share some of my thoughts. And there is a resolution I was given. I believe it's going to be on the table tomorrow. And I think there's been some recommendations made. But we have to do something that's going to make some significant impacts on our people. We have to focus our attention on our people. And I hope that the Grand Chief and the Executive and every one of us will take this with heart and with the utmost attention and urgency. So I had a lot more to say, but I'll leave it at that. And for giving me the opportunity, and also our hearts and our prayers and thoughts to the Sacadee family. Losing our elder, Mary and Linda and the rest of the family. Our prayers and thoughts get nagom. So migach, and I hope we can do something more concrete, more robust, more in a way that's going to produce and hope that it fixes itself. We got to take action, and that action requires commitment, a lot of effort. It requires a lot of things, so we can actually see the faces of our people get impacted positively. So and thank you, Chair, for the this issue.
Good, Chief Munoz. Chief Wesley.
When in see and guy just gonna again looking at Kagan mouth on a mop and much see and guy parting the onion in Nokia and Nokia and guy have me to watch and Slifna. Waha. We know down on and can get one guy saying it's going to get she mouth on got take of an inch and she on this night got taken sunny my saying my I had one final comment I wanted to make. During the last NAN election, I had the opportunity to nominate our Grand Chief. And I gave him a mandate that I felt was important and that it needed to be done. Because of the issues that we face today and that we're speaking about around this table, many of these issues are born by the fact that many of our organizations are siloed and bound by corporate bylaws. And it's very important that we all understand that the barrier to our problems are those corporate bylaws that dictate how our organizations operate. And the mandate I gave our Grand Chief was that we need to move away from that We need to start moving into our traditional forms of governance, our own traditional laws. We need to bring those back. Oftentimes we're sitting here looking at our bylaws to see whether it's in line, whether it affects labor laws, whether it's in compliance with those labor laws. Does it affect somebody's constitutional right? That's what we primarily focus on all the time. And we forget our people. Like in my community just recently, we pulled the plug on a person. That is the hardest thing for a chief to carry. This, over my last term, I've carried over 20 deaths. 5 of those were opioid overdoses. So a big burden to carry. So I wanted to make that point heard, that this is something that I had asked my Grand Chief to do, is that we really need to go back to our roots. We need to take care of our people. We need to hear them. And we have to act upon our own laws. We have our own laws. We have child care laws. We have our own forms of justice. That's why NAPS was presenting there earlier, because we raised those concerns that we have traditional laws around justice. We need to develop our own systems of policing. We need to go back. We need to go home. Yes.
Miigwech, Chief Wesley. So, proxy Matthew Anges. Then I'm going to do a bit of a summary of what I'm hearing, and then I'm going to get the executive to respond. Go ahead, Matthew.
At a tribal council, there's one thing that I have seen from the time that I started working as a PD. Like, we do have a lot of capable people in the tribal council, especially in mental health and in addiction. A lot of times we don't get together. We just do our own thing. Like, what I like to see is, for me anyways, is I like to see if all the resources that are within the tribal councils to get together, somebody to coordinate and facilitate a 2-day discussion and develop an overall strategy in terms of what we can do right away and long term. A lot of times we just want to stay within our own silo. And I hate to say this, even at the community level, it's the same. And I think we need to break away from that, try to find ways of how to identify which areas that we can work together on collectively. I think, as I said, I know that there are a lot of capable people that can provide the services at the local level, even at the district level too. And I know all of us are competing for the same specialized people, and we can't find anyone. And I wish there was a way that we could co-share those specialists that are available, rather than competing, those kind of stuff. I just wanted to share that. Thanks.
Miigwech, for those comments. I think what I'm hearing is Wichi Don, Chuichi Nanuk, Chuichi Dizyak, Kaweb Ma Chekwa, Kado Demna. That's what I'm hearing, is helping each other to help our people. Helping each other to help ourselves is what I'm hearing. Go ahead, Proxy, Marianne.
Hello. Marianne Nikas from Mishkigogma. You know, I've been in council for a long time, Aja. I think it's about 17 years. And I took 1 year off when I lost my boy, when trying to help him with his education. Again, gave me Semgak and EC. And that's the reason why I resigned that year. And, you know, I had all those years I'm in council, I had health and social and child welfare. And I don't take that lightly. You get in because you mean judge the chiefs. I was under Connie Gray McKagan, David. Those are the portfolios that he gave me. And Apachingos Seguentan, those portfolios, I know you're dealing with life. Imatisin, going. And I don't take it lightly. Apachingos Seguentan, with me again. And I'm sure that's what the chiefs must be feeling about their people. Guys, Sarge. You know, I've seen a lot, and both the elders and the young people got me Sarge being supporting families when they pull the plug on their loved ones. We've been there, even with the elders when they're dying. We always support the family. And you know, if it's because of you just say, what I find is, you know, getting it, this past 2 years we've been burying young people, mothers, leaving their children, and that's not easy to see that in our communities. When those young children are asking for their parents, where's mom? Is mom coming home? They could watch because they don't understand what happened. And a lot of times I hear, nagagwe, windamoj, posyo, nagagashats, guys, such, and it's hard for them, you know. You know, and it's good that the doors are opening for Gagin ko Michigan, Josh Sichigang. That's good. And I think we have to make it right. It's going to have our own child welfare system or even education, health. Let's do it right. When I think about it, wish could get down this morning, again. Our land, going, our land shaking, and then yet, and the resources, going, and what I really find is, I was going to ask NAN, and you gave now guys huge talk about then with this housing crisis that we have in our communities. You know, when I think it was Saturday, somebody texted me, they gave a young person, if I'm a damage in our community, saying that he's homeless. That really got me. Because they thought it was my grandson. They just lost their home to a fire, you know. Still today, my daughter's homeless. And you know, that really got me, and I right away texted my grandson if that was him. He said no, it wasn't him. You know, and I think we really need houses in our communities. Even with the young people, Danamin self, the Nenimag, if they have their own place. Because that's where the healing comes from, is in our homes. Ni magajik kana monggo begini chance na kukweni na them show you that doesn't have a home. Antigage that antigage ni batch that night. Always looking for antigage ni batch. Now that is sad to see in our communities. Even there was a lot of homeless get happen more in the chance in the cities. I know for a fact, getting two of my nieces being homeless in the city. Those are the things that are real, that we're dealing with every day in our communities. Let's get down the NAN staff to come in our communities. In the teaching which dodge. And I like the idea, Russell, that I got to research the Aningaji Sanyam Dinedam. And Migwach Dish, I had a chance to proxy our chief, be able to say what, Gimawid. Migwach.
Miigwech proxy Marianne from Mashkiwagamak. I thought I saw a hand up. Oh, Women's Council, Teresa.
Good afternoon. I'm listening to the chiefs around the table. I hear them. I understand them. I work with the communities in the James Bay region with mental health. First of all, as I look around the table, with the police situations, and I agree that, there should be our own kind working for each of the communities so that they understand our people. I would like to tell you about, I lost a granddaughter who was 15 years old. She took her life. And when we were asked to go to the hospital nearby the community where I was residing, I'd like to say thank you to him, David Naguji. He was there, and I began to say prayers in my language. And that was the most, at that time of what I was feeling. Whatever it was I was feeling, it was shocking because I just lost my granddaughter. And he was there to help me with that prayer that I said in my language. I thought I would share that with the chiefs in regards to policing of, it would be nice to have our own, because I'm beginning to see a lot of, I don't know who they are, maybe, I don't know, Métis police services within our communities, with all the communities that I work for. And yes, I understand Chief Munoz and Chief Wesley, screaming because they see what's going on in their communities, not only them, but everywhere else. Andaman, elder abuse, Michelle, due to drugs. We're losing people every day, and it is very hard, Andaman. And then I work for myself. My chief of Fort Albany usually calls me and says, can you come and work with this family? Because he sees what's going on. And then I worked with this one family because he was struggling. He lost his mom, and it was an accident, but that's how I'm going to say it. And he lost his mom through that accident. And then he began, when I went to the community, I asked him, how are you feeling these days? And he said, I don't know if I can handle this anymore. And meanwhile, he didn't have anybody to talk to. And this is why we need to, say hello to our people when we meet them wherever. And he says, I don't know if I can handle this anymore, of what he was going through. He says, I don't know how my aunties or my family, my siblings are feeling towards me. So what I did was I asked for a circle. I asked him first, would you like to have a circle with your family? Because he was I don't know what would have happened if we didn't have that circle today. And he said, yes, I want that circle. And majority of his siblings, his aunties, his uncles, they were all emotional because they were actually thinking the same thing. And if we could just get together, reunite, and just possibly, like what my chief did to me, he asked me, can you come and work with this family? And that's where I go all over. I do mostly home visits or elder visits. And those elder visits, they energize you. And today, when that Pope visitation was happening, I was asked to go to Fort Albany. That was the main residential school, the most horrific one of Canada. So I was asked to go there, and I went there, and just in case triggers happen. So what I'm hearing now is our people want to sit down with their adult children to apologize of what may have occurred during upbringing. And I think that's good, because we're coming to, where they want to make amends to their children. And that's a good sign. And this is where we need is maybe, or other organizations within the communities, remote communities especially, because they don't really have that much resources, where we can say, visit, or, we know which people are, struggling with addictions. I have a son that's struggling addictions. I don't know where he is for, I don't know, a very long time. And I wait every day, but, sometimes I wonder when that news is going to come. But from my heart, I pray of what I believe in today. And I think, and I'm hearing the chiefs here, they're worried of what the struggles that we face today. But I think just acknowledgement of when you see people because they're struggling, and that's maybe where we can start this, from our families or the community members. And closing, yes, it's very hard with the drugs today, and we're losing our people, but maybe, and this is what I'm hearing with the chiefs, it's very hard. But before I close, I was kind of feeling down one day as a work that I do with mental health and within communities. But I know when you sit down with a person and you communicate with them in the language, that's what works, the connection. It means so much to the people, even young ones. And as I mentioned before closing, I was I was kind of feeling down that morning, and then I'm thinking to myself, maybe I should just go for an early morning walk. And I got a call from Chief Black from Wagasik First Nation, and she says, "Can you call me?" And anyway, she says, "We wanted you to go to I don't know what's the name of that, in Sault Ste. Marie with residential school." And I said, "I'm kind of working over here." And then she says, "Well, we have you on the list, and just so you know, we'll always have you on our list because we care about you." And those little things mean a lot to a person. And that's how I began my day that day. Just little bit of things. Hello to young people as we try to live with the everyday struggles. And I say, Kishtimingish for listening.
Miigwech, Women's Council, Teresa Sutherland. So there's been a lot of good discussion, a lot of open sharing, a lot of contributions, suggestions on what can be done. And I know Chief Muñoz, you talked about a resolution. So if there is a resolution, details brought forward normally to the Resolutions Committee, and they would present that. So if that happens, we can do that. We won't get to a resolution today, obviously. We'll look at it tomorrow. But there's a lot of suggestions. And again, the discussion has been that we need an action plan. Something needs to be developed. Something needs to come out of it, not just talking, but something needs to come out of this discussion. And I know that there was a presentation on the Health Summit, the 2 or 3 days that were spent talking specifically about some of the challenges, some of the issues we're talking about here today. So I'm going to ask Anna Betty, Deputy Grand Chief Adjutant Benescom, just to talk a little bit about that and maybe some of the steps moving forward, because there needs to be an action plan. Something needs to come out of these discussions.
Well, we certainly need to commit to the action. And at times it's really difficult to recognize the actions that people are doing in their family and their communities, because the issue is so overwhelming. I know that Chief Wesley will go and do searches. And I know other leadership do that as well. We have leadership that will go and sit with families after they have lost someone, or go and break the news when someone has passed. Because when we're talking about addictions, you know, we're also talking about suicide. Someone who continues to drink heavily or use other solvents for many years, that's a slow suicide. And we've lost many to that. In the last few days, you've heard about individuals who are no longer with us. I don't think any one of us is immune. You know, I have grandchildren too who are growing up without their father, because it will be 4 years since he died from an overdose. And there's many children like that. None of us are immune. So that health summit that we were a part of, you know, each of us as a NAN executive, we participated and we listened. And then in a few days' time, we will have a meeting about that as to how we're going to be implementing that. That's our commitment. because each of the portfolio items will, we all have that opportunity and that responsibility to commit to implementing not only the recommendations from that health summit, but the other reports as well that are in existence that are speaking to addictions. So I want to, I have been able to help many of our families. It wasn't too long ago when I went to support a mother that was looking for her child that she thought was lost on the street. I have helped families in Thunder Bay who were arranging funerals for their loved ones. And, I have great compassion for that. It's not only because it's part of my role as a deputy, but this is something that I did for many years in the past because I saw that this was a concern and an issue amongst our people. The issue of dying from overdose has been happening for 2 decades now. And I share the sentiments of Chief Wesley, who says that he has been talking about this and it seems like no one's listening, because I've been doing that for many years and so have many other people, including our young people. And at times it's really frustrating when we're dealing with the government because they don't seem to acknowledge what is happening. So we will make all those efforts, whether we're advocating, to ensure that our tribal councils, our communities have the resources. If you want to have a detox in your program, in your community, whether it's a natural detox or a chemical detox process, if you need to, have the capacity and the funds to do that, then we will support you. And we have done that in the past. If you want to, require more funding for, your Choose Life program or other reform, such as NADAP, right? NADAP has not changed at all for so many years. I think it needs to be reset. And our child and family services, there's so many things there that we can utilize that are there. We just have to commit to, moving forward on this. We have built relationships with individuals that can help us find the data, because when we go to the government, we need to have data. Sadly, we need to know how many people have died from an overdose. We need to know how many children are orphaned. We need to know how many people have gone to jail because of addictions. Because when we go to the government, they need that. And we will ensure that we set up a process to be able to do that. And so I've asked Deputy Linklater, to also to speak on this, because he carries the health transformation, which, within that particular portfolio and health process, we can also, and he's working on a lot of stuff with his team. And so thank you very much for this time, and then we'll certainly make those, in terms of the resolution, if it's to have an implementation process that will include some of the recommendations, and we will certainly, help in drafting that. I think that will, even though we have said that we will continue to, work on implementing this, if we get that direction, that will give us that documentation to take when we go to the government. And also, to utilize those where the communities have declared a state of emergency on overdoses and other addictions. So,
Thank you. Pretty heavy topic. But, as we were talking about yesterday and today, we can't deal with any of these issues in isolation because they're all connected. And, when it comes to governance, I think that is the approach that you need to go. Because we did have our own ways. We did have community protocols that were set up. We didn't call them protocols, it's just what we were doing. And we need to work together. And we hear the chiefs today. Personally, when I hear the stories, this is heavy, but you know what? We're talking about it. But we're dealing with the symptoms, but we really need to get to the root problems of why drugs, why alcohol, and some of that's connected to our trauma. It affects our health, it affects all our communities. And, as we deal with the secrets of our communities and the things that have happened to our children and to families, and we move towards healing, I gotta believe that if we have the right processes in place and we go back to who we are as a people, I believe healing will come. And on a personal note, I went back to my home community like last week, and I did a memorial service. But I also went back to the community where I spent most of my life on, and we just had a graveyard that was built not too long ago, and I was looking at all the graves of the people that have left, and many of them are young people, and you'll see basketballs and you'll see the tombstones. But every region, it seems like, just goes through this wave of suicides, and we lost 16 young people from our high school within a year and a half, and then it was almost like a spirit that actually, it just left our community and went to the next community and to the next community, as you see it go up the James Bay coast. And one of the things we realized when we talk about services and silos was we did an environmental scan of what the resources that were there. There was 47 different programs that were to address those issues, but nobody was working together. There was no sharing of data. There was no collaboration. Everyone was fighting for the same pot, for the same resources. And you know what? It's a vicious cycle. So we gotta be solution-based, because we can't afford to talk anymore. And as an executive, it touches all our portfolios. We feel it. We can't afford to lose any more people, any young people. But we are in systems that perpetuate destruction. It really is, and it's destroying us right at the core. And we got to get back and go back to what's there. And you know what? We need to talk as leaders. Appreciate the conversation, heavy conversation. It all touches all of us, because we could actually connect our people to every issue that we talk about. And leaving this meeting today, we took our notes, come back with a plan. We just got the Mental Health Summit report back. There's some stuff you need to extract from there, other reports that we need to dust off, because I remember Grand Chief Solomon used to say, we've been studied to death. All the stats are already there, so we just got to start implementing. So we'll leave you with those words. Thank you.
Hello, everyone, chiefs and everybody. And I just want to echo some of the sentiments around the table, and I really thank all the chiefs that shared, and it's quite the job that you all have, especially the responsibilities to your community members and moving ahead. But in terms of I want to also reiterate the fact that there needs to be some action. I really echo that sentiment as well in terms of what is happening. And also, I just want to ensure that, echoing the discussion that's happening around the table, the need for coordination of services at the community level. And the fact that even we have things scheduled that will enable us to look at an action plan of getting all of our various groups and agencies and our First Nation champions as well to really get together and have this forum. I'd like to remind everyone too that with respect to child welfare reform, looking at ways where our First Nations could really assert their inherent jurisdiction over child and family services, and really look at it in a way where going past just child protection. We know that there's other challenges and issues at play here: lack of housing, addictions, and everything. I think there's steps ahead that we could also engage in together. Like, for example, the Child and Family Services Forum that we're going to be organizing next month, September 20th to 22nd. And we're going to get those dates to you, as I said before. Another opportunity to really get all of our resources together, our Child and Family Service agencies at the table, our band reps, all of our different players, our First Nations reps, and to really get a sense of, putting a track forward in terms of really meeting this very important issue head on. Also, the Choose Life annual AGM. We've said that, there is opportunities for the Choose Life program to evolve and also complement the mental health work that's happening at the community level. We want to encourage your participation and your Choose Life workers at home. And if you're listening at home as well, it's an opportunity for you too to really be part of the solution in terms of moving ahead. So, Anishinaabe Nation is organizing the annual general meeting September 28th and 30th for Choose Life. So mark that in your calendars. And these are different ways that we want to really prosper action and encourage action, as we heard, because we've heard the frustration, we've heard the torment, we hear the challenges that we're facing. And I was just given a note saying that, how many mental health resolutions that Anishinaabe Nation has over the years? There's 120 mental health oriented resolutions. We've been doing this for years. There's been inroads in terms of there's been good work in many of our First Nation communities, but there's, as we've heard today and ongoing, there's a lot more that we can do. And I think there's a lot of opportunities for us to really look at ways to overcome some of these areas in the coordinating of all the resources that we have. Easier said than done, but I think we need to do something in terms of, and we have an opportunity to look at these in depth, to really coordinate our services at the community level, working with our tribal councils, working with individual First Nations initiatives on the ground, and moving ahead as well. We're talking about education too. We're supports for our young children, changing that curriculum, building that self-esteem, really looking at building resiliency. What resiliency means? The ability to overcome different challenges that our children, youth, and families face. And I think it's an opportunity where, these are areas in October 24th and 28th where we are having our education summit, bringing all of our work together. And it's so we need to also ensure that although our work overlaps, we cannot be working in silos, as we said before. And I just really want to acknowledge all the sharing that's been happening. And I too, I want to see action. I want to work with our chiefs and our leaderships and our tribal councils, all of our different champions at the community level, to work with our executive and our various chiefs committees on this very particular area. So I look forward to working with you all, and please reach out to us in our offices as well. NAN has support staff. We have Choose Life support staff that could help you develop your program, family well-being. We have to also coordinate our work with health and education and social services as well. We want to move forward on those areas as well. So with that, I'll turn over back to your chair, Miigwech.
Miigwech to the Deputy Grand Chiefs. Michiwe Kadian Mawajigo Guzuwen Dagwan, Guzuwan Nuga Tajinjigadik. Ego Mawajigun Sidonagwan, Hugumakanag, Emamet Nin Maik, Gedanshnima, Hugeb Machai, Gedanshnima. Nanachum Nawats Miigwech, Uegak Chenkik, Uegayan Hitamoy, Gawanuk Gedanshnima. I just wanted to say that it's been a heavy discussion. It is a heavy discussion. But I see, looking around the room, chiefs, that you have the people of your communities at heart in your discussion. And we've had a really good discussion, and I'd like to commend you. Thank you all for making those contributions, having those discussions, and I know you're all here for the benefit of your people in your communities. So I want to say miigwech. The other thing is, this discussion is a heavy discussion, but you know there's a lot of good things in our communities as well. There's a lot of positive things happening in our communities. We have role models that we can look up to. We have success stories. We have really good things that are happening in our communities. And the reason I want to mention that is that's the next part of the Keewaywin Assembly. Tonight, 6 o'clock, the awards ceremony. That highlights the successes, the good things that's happening in our communities. And I want to leave this session with that because there are good things happening. There is a lot to be smiling about. There's a lot to be happy about. And that's what we need to get off out of this room into the other room. That'll be starting in about an hour. So I wanted to close with that there is a lot of good things. And commend all of you for those contributions. So with that, we're going to wrap up this session. We'll be back tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. We'll see you in an hour in the other room. So, miigwech. Thank you.